Hi everybody, it's M.Boll here. Now we are in year 3, moving on to our new unit. Okay, so we've finished studying about the world's climate, and last week's lesson on our local climate here in the temperate zone was the last one in that series, and we're moving on to our last geography topic for this academic year, which is all about coasts. Okay, this coast here in this photograph is a picture of Aberdeen Beach up in the northeast of Scotland, and you'll see why I've started with that one later on. Now, during this lesson, we're going to be able to, by the end of the lesson, talk about coastal places that you have visited. You'll be able to locate some coastal places on a map of the United Kingdom, and you'll be able to use geographical vocabulary to describe the coast. Here is some of the new vocabulary that we're going to be learning about. This word here, the Strand Line. What does that mean? We're going to be finding that out in a minute. The Tidal Range, development, tourist. You probably know what that means already. What's a marina? You often see these at the seaside. And what is the leisure industry? Okay, here is the first one of our new bits of vocabulary. Now, if you look at both photographs, it's exactly the same place, and the two photographs were taken on the same day. So can you tell me why they're so different? Call out the answer. Okay, I expect that you have worked out that the tide's gone out. So here is the boat, which is moored up against this wall here. And this second photograph is when the tide's gone out. Now, this is a place called the Bay of Fundy, which is in Canada. And it's a good place to demonstrate one of the key phrases that we're going to learn for this unit, which is tidal range. Now, the tidal range in the Bay of Fundy is very high. So there's a high tidal range, and there's a big difference that means between high tide over here and low tide over there. And when you've been to the seaside, you might have noticed that. For example, we sometimes go to a beach called West Wittering, which you might have been to, or you might have been to East Wittering. And at both of those beaches, there's quite a big difference between high tide and low tide. And you have to time, if you're going to build your sandcastle, you have to time it quite carefully so that the tide will come in when you're finished and you're ready to see it go under the sea. Because otherwise you might be sad because your sandcastle gets absorbed by the sea before you are ready. So, and on the next one, we're going to look at another new phrase, and this is the phrase I want you to use, Strand Line. So what does it mean? Well, here's a beautiful deserted beach in the north of Scotland. This one's on the west coast of Scotland on an island called Barra. And this here, you can see, is where the last high tide has left all the seaweed. Okay, and that's the Strand Line. And when the tide then starts to go out again, it's gone out now, you can see, when the tide goes out, it leaves behind it all the seaweed. And sometimes you find other things like bits of driftwood and that sort of thing. But that's the word I wanted to use for this, is a strand line. Okay, moving on now. This is a very busy beach area in Spain. Now, as you know, the weather in Spain in the summer is very nice, very hot, and lots of people, including lots of people from Britain, go here to places like this. This is Benidorm, go here for their holidays. So this is a holiday resort. Okay, that's another word, a useful word, a resort of Benidorm. And here, the word I wanted to use for this is development. So we'll be talking today about what types of development has there been at the various coastal places that we'll be talking about. And this has had lots of a development, as you can see. So can you just call out a few things that you can see that have been developed in this photograph? Okay, so I think that you will have noticed here there are lots and lots of apartments. Some of these are probably part of big hotels where you can go and stay. And some of them might be places that you can rent the apartment and have it for a week or 2 weeks. You will have noticed there's lots of car parking for people who are coming down, probably from within Spain, who are going to drive there. Because if we're going from Britain, we would often fly. And then on the beach, you'll see there's probably various places that are going to hire you a beach umbrella or something to sit on, a lounger. And so there's lots and lots of developments all the way up and down this beach. Okay, so that's an example of development. So now we're going to look at Britain, and we're focusing a lot in this lesson today on the UK. And here is a place, you might have been there, it's in Dorset, which is nearby, near to Hampshire. And this is a place called Lyme Regis. And down here, there's a lovely beach, and there's some development that you can see. It's not as much as in Benidorm, but they have built a place for all the boats to be kept. And especially you need to do that at night. And here's the harbour, another key word, the harbour wall, which means even if there was a big storm out here in the sea, the waves are not going to crash over here and ruin your boat. So keep your boat in a place, and these places like this are called marinas, and there are lots of these on the south coast of England, and so it's a place, it's connected with the leisure industry. So because it's things that you do for fun, people who work in that industry, people who run the harbour, people who do sailing lessons, etc., we call that working in the leisure industry. So that's an example of a marina, which is a development for tourists. That one's in Britain at Lyme Regis. Now we're going to move on to looking at some places locally to us that you might have been to. Sorry, no we're not. This one, we're going to do this first. This one gives an example of traditional industries. And this one, again, is in the north of Scotland, in the Hebrides. And here you can see this is not a tourist industry. This is people who use this area for fishing. So you've got traditional industries. Sometimes you've got both traditional and tourist industries in the same places. Okay, now this is a place near to us. This is Hayling Island. So as you can see from this aerial photograph, it's an area that's got naturally got these lovely beaches here all the way along the outside of Hayling Island. And so you may well have been here. Now we're going to look at this one here in a little bit more detail. So this is a closer up shot of a section of Hayling Island, and it hasn't got the massive hotels and apartment blocks and car parks down there that you saw in the photograph of Benidorm in Spain, but it has got things there, some developments. Okay, and I want you to see if you can call out what you think you can see in this photograph. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Okay, let's see what we come up with now. Here, these have been built. These wooden things, of wooden barriers, I'll give you the proper name in a minute, have been built out into the sea. Okay, now over here you can see these huts, and these are called beach huts. All right, so these beach huts here, people can buy them or rent them out, and that means that when you go down there, if there is a storm or a bit of a shower, you can go inside there. It means you can keep all your stuff in there, all your stuff for making tea and your sandwiches and etc. And sometimes, as you know, in Britain, it's not quite as hot as Spain, so you might want to sit in there and get out of the wind for a bit before you go back in the sea or back out to do whatever you're going to do. So beach huts are very common in Britain, and here they are on Hayling Island. This is the windsurfing. Okay, so you can see on Hayling Island, because we have quite strong winds on the south coast of Britain, it's really popular for windsurfing. So there's loads of them along there. And linked to that, you normally find there's places where you can hire windsurfers. So that's obviously part of the leisure industry that we discussed before. And you'll also find places where you're going to do windsurfing lessons or sailing lessons, etc. Up here you might have noticed there's an area for parking your car or your caravan at your mobile home. And then coming back to these are they're all flying in again. Here we go. Beach huts. This is the special word I want you to learn. These are groins, okay? And these wooden things, they're built out into the sea because if you didn't have them, the waves would come, especially when it's a big storm. The waves would come and they would gradually wash away the beach. And so these groins are preventing the erosion of the beach. Okay, so if they weren't there, the beach would gradually disappear and there wouldn't be anywhere for people to play, make a sandcastle or do any windsurfing or anything like that. So that's an example. There are, even on a nice quiet beach like this one, you've still got some examples of development that you can see. Okay, this one you might have been over to the Isle of Wight, and this is the beach at Shanklin. Okay, and there are lots of other lovely beaches there. So you're going to get a chance later to write about a beach that you've been to or a seaside town that you've been to. And we'll talk about that a bit more later on. Here's some more pictures from different places in the UK. So this one is Cornwall. And here people go there to look at the beautiful sunset setting over these small rocks that are in the sea there. And that's something that you'll see the sunset off to the southwest and to the west from the coast of Cornwall. Is one of the reasons lots of people go there on holiday. This is Cornwall as well. And in Cornwall, this is more than Hampshire. You tend to get these steep cliffs near the beach. And this one, when you get a beach like this, between two lots of cliffs, we call that a cove. And people, it actually takes quite a lot of trouble to get down there. You have to walk down there, down a path. You can't park there. And so people go there to get away from the big crowds. And then they're obviously out here playing in the sea or having a picnic or whatever they're doing. So the Cornwall coast and Devon is a bit different to Hampshire. And sometimes you may well have been there for a holiday. This one's in Devon. This is Sidling. And we've got these very steep cliffs up here, which again would be unusual. You wouldn't see that in Hampshire very much. And then you've got the lovely sandy beach here. Now this one up here, it's actually not usually hot enough for people to go. It's a beautiful beach. It's up on the Isle of Barra, again in Scotland. And the things that are on here are actually the cows as they're working their way across here. Now it's low tide. How do I know it's low tide? Call out your answers. Well done. You will have seen that previous high tides have left the Strand Line. And there's the one there. But there's another one when the tide was a bit higher, maybe a couple of days before. And here's another one. So the tide doesn't always come up to the same height every single day. And so you get various strand lines that you can see on the beach, like in a place like that. Now here's Cornwall. And sometimes when you've got rocky coasts, you can have higher waves and it can be rougher. And as I'm sure you know, if you had a boat just out here, that would be quite dangerous because there are a lot more rocks under the sea that you can't see, especially as the tide goes in and out. So sailing is actually probably a more popular sport around the Hampshire, Isle of Wight area than it would be right off the rocky coasts of Cornwall. Right, back to Aberdeen Beach. Now I'm showing you this picture because when you come to write your piece about a seaside town or beach that you've been to, I'm going to show you a waggle that I've done, which is about visiting this beach. Because my wife comes from Aberdeen, and when we go to visit her family, we nearly always go down here to this beach for a visit. Okay, now, so you can see it can get pretty rough up there, because it's a very windy place on the northeast coast of Scotland. Okay, and also you'll notice here, what do you think that is? Okay, well done. It's a part of a wind farm, and they've now, this picture was taken a couple of years ago, but they've actually got even more now, so there's lots and lots of electricity now being generated by wind farms in the places, especially off the coast, the east coast of Britain, which is very windy. Okay, here's your first task. Now, you're going to write a paragraph about a visit that you have had to the seaside. It could be in the UK, or it could be abroad if you went on holiday somewhere like Spain or Greece, or wherever it might be. In your paragraph, I want you to include what type of beach there was. For example, was it rocky like Cornwall, or did you have pebbles like you get at Hayling Island, or sand like you get at Wittering, and write a description about that. When you went there, what was the weather like? So probably if you were on holiday to a hot country, then the weather was just hot every single day. Well, that's fine. You can write about that. Okay, write about was the sea rough? Did you have big waves? What did you do while you were there? So, for example, did you play in the rock pools looking for shells? Did you go looking for crabs? And include stuff you did afterwards or before, like having some fish and chips or even going to the arcade or on a ride. And can you include how you got there? And then I want you to talk in using your geographical vocabulary as well about whether the area was developed. Okay, so did they have beach huts? Did they have the groins that we've seen that stop the erosion? Was there sailing, windsurf hire? Were there apartments, hotels, car parks, etc.? And then mention if there was any fishing, which there might have been. Did you notice the tide? Was the tidal range high? Seaweed, shells, the view, or anything else that you noticed? Okay, so you're going to choose somewhere that you've been and write a paragraph about it. Here's my example, which is about going to Aberdeen Beach in the northeast of Scotland. Okay, here's the first section. Before the lockdown, we went to visit my wife's family in Aberdeen. They have an amazing beach there which has beautiful light-coloured sand and stretches along the coast for 2 miles. Usually you have the beach to yourself, except for the occasional person who is out walking the dog. This is because it is always freezing. Even on the hottest summer's day, the wind whips in off the North Sea and the wind chill makes it much too cold to swim. The tidal range is not very high, so you don't notice the tidal changes on a short visit. You do see the Strand Line very clearly, which has seaweed and some driftwood. We got there by car, and it's easy to park. The area around the beach is developed. There's a golf course and a leisure centre, where it is safe to go swimming, plus various cafes and some fairground rides. The beach has wooden groins to prevent erosion. The view out to sea includes a wind farm and some enormous oil tankers, because this area produces a lot of oil. The 5 of us in my family played frisbee on the beach, and my daughter had to go into the sea to fetch it. The waves were quite low. She went in up to her ankles. After that, she started shivering almost immediately. So we finished by warming up with fish and chips from a van that parks up near the beach. So what I've done with my Waggle is to put in red, these are examples of the things that I have said here that I want you to mention. So the things that I've asked you to mention are in my Waggle in red. Obviously yours won't be the same, because it's not very likely that you went to a beach as cold as Aberdeen. Okay, that's the first thing. Now the second thing is we're going to find some seaside towns and places, including places that you've been to, on this map. So you're going to print this out from the school's website. Okay, and again, as usual, don't worry if you can't print it out. Just draw me a quick sketch map of Britain. Doesn't have to be a work of art, and just put the places that we're going to talk about as close as you can to where they are. To work out where they're going, where they actually are, okay, you're going to use this map. This could help you, okay? So here is a map of some of the main coastal towns of Britain, okay? And the other thing you could use, which I think you would find really fun, is Google Earth. So we've used it before, and if you were to type in the name of somewhere, like here's, for example, Whitley Bay, then Google Earth will fly you there, and you'll be able to work out where it is, okay? So that would be a really fun way of doing this, and would be good for your Google Earth skills, all right? Or you can use this map. So here are some of the beaches that we're going to find. Hayling Island we're going to find, Whitley Bay, which is this one, Great Yarmouth, Southend, Weymouth, Sidmouth in Devon, which we saw a photograph of, Minehead, which is in North Devon, that's on the opposite coast, Land's End, which is in Cornwall, you've probably heard of it, Porthcawl, which is in Wales, Blackpool, which is in the northwest of England, and the Isle of Barra, which is the one we saw in Scotland, which is very deserted and only has cows on it. Aberdeen you're going to find, because that's the one I've been to, and then any other places that you want to put onto the map. And here's how it works. So here's your map showing Britain, and it has all of the regions of Britain. So for example, here's Scotland, but England, because it's a bigger area, is broken up into different regions. So here's the southwest, and here's the southeast where we live, and Borden is about there, where the arrow is now. So I've given you, to help you, the region that the beach or the town is in. For example, Weymouth here is in the southwest. So when you go down here, you can find Weymouth in the southwest. I'm going to put some on for an example. Okay, so here is Hayling Island. Here is the Isle of Barra. And here is Aberdeen. The other ones, you're going to find them. Okay, and here's your list. So I'll leave that on the screen. Okay, and you might want to freeze that. But to find them on your copy of the map, of course, there's lots of things you could use. Google Earth you could use. You could just look up where they are on the internet, or you may have an atlas or a globe. Globe might not give you enough detail of the UK, that's the only problem. But anything that you've got that will help you to find those places and label them on the map is fine with me. So let's just have a reminder. Task 1, write a paragraph, like this one, about a visit that you have made to the seaside. And task 2 is to label beaches and seaside towns on this map. And there's the list. Okay, well done. Send them to me, or a photograph of them to me when you're ready, and look forward to hearing from you. All the best. Bye for now.